Rent a crowd again. Yeah. Happy New Year, mate. Good to see you. A very busy year for you last year with Aston Martin Racing, flying the flag for a great British sports car mark at Le Mans and all the other big international races. Good times?
Interesting, I'd say. I mean, obviously we were doing the World GT1 Championship, and that was fantastic. You know, the last 2 years it's been very competitive, and it went down to the last race on both years, you know, in Argentina. So, and both years we've gone there with a chance of winning it. And this year we came 11. We came away second in the championship. But you know, that side's been really good. And obviously Le Mans last year wasn't fantastic with the AMR one car. It was a very bold and attempt at trying to sort of get on terms with the diesels and that. And maybe with a bit more funding and more time, it could have got there. But unfortunately, it just didn't go our way.
It was the first sort of proper all Aston Martin prototype, sort of ground-up thing for many, many years. Fundamentally, what was wrong with the car? Because it looked good and it had promise.
I mean, it basically was just early in its development, and most of the big teams, big manufacturers have got the opportunity to go away, do all their testing and development with a car over a year behind closed doors while they're still racing their sort of previous model. And we had to do everything in public, and it was just maybe we needed to be, looking at 2012 as the time to be hitting Le Mans, but it just wasn't possible for doing that. So, that was effectively it. It's a test program that everyone got to see.
Despite the history and the prestige and the status of Aston Martin, it's tiny, isn't it, compared with the likes of Audi and Peugeot in mainstream manufacturing? Oh,
yeah, massively. You look at the big guns, and it's definitely David and Goliath with the size of Aston Martin racing team. And over the years, they've always punched well above their weight. You think about the Lola Aston Martin that we've ran for 2009 and 2010. It was, it was the fastest petrol out there, and it was very competitive. And it had a lot of good results because of that. And this, like you say, it was a ground up. Everything was new on that car from every part, gearbox, engine, chassis, aerodynamics, everything was new. And we just needed some time to go testing. But you look back at what's been achieved by Aston Martin Racing since it was formed at the end of 2004, and then obviously we won in 07 and 08 at Le Mans with the GT1 car, and everything that we got with the Lola Aston Martin. Then overall it's been a fantastic, successfully program. So we've just had one little blip.
The BO960, the Gulf Lola Aston Martin Coupe, possibly in my top 3 or 4 most beautiful racing cars of all time.
Well, I'm glad to hear it's in your top 3 or 4.
Don't you agree?
I mean, yeah,
it's just the most magnificent-looking machine.
I mean, I've still got very big affections for the DBR9, just because I was there for the very first time the car drove, and obviously being in the car when we won in 07 and 08. So I really do love that car, and if I had some money, I'd be out there buying it from a collector. But the LMP1 Aston was a beautiful car, and also it sounded great. I think that was one of the biggest appeals. And in fact, this week, 2 of the cars have been built for their collectors, because they obviously go off to the collectors and everything else and off to museums. So we had to do the shakedown test on Wednesday. So that was possibly the last time I was going to drive that LMP1 car. So it was a bit of a sad day, really, but it was really nice to get back in the 2 cars and put a few laps on it under our belts, get a few kilometres before handing it over to the owners.
You mentioned the FIA GT1 World Championship Assault, which you nearly won with Jan Struve's young driver setup. Are you going to be doing more with them in 2012?
I don't know. I mean,
really?
I'd like to know, but basically, I'm contracted to Aston Martin Racing, and they dictate what I'm going to do. There's certainly been talk of that continuing, but I think everyone's just waiting to see what's going to happen with the championship. It's been strong for the last 2 years, and hopefully it will carry on like that. But we just got to wait and see.
There's talk of it going to be for GT3 cars, which are more sort of production spec, aren't they?
I think that was what they used to be. You look at the latest generation of GT3 and
like that.
Yeah. They're not totally production anymore, and
no.
They're very close to what GT1 is already, and I don't think there's much in lap time at all, or the balance of performance between what they have done on GT1 and where GT3 is right now. You're probably talking a second a lap on most circuits, so there's not a great deal in it.
There's a massive amount of interest in GT racing, isn't it? This class where you can instantly identify with what you're looking at. And Porsche, Ferrari, Aston Martin, BMW, they're all in it big time now, aren't they?
I think you've had Porsche and Ferrari being a mainstay of GT racing for years, and Aston certainly more recently have been very much in there mixing it up. But I think most manufacturers are seeing the benefit of their cars out there racing wheel to wheel with the competition, and also they sell cars. There's a lot of national championships, so it's good for business, it's good for the teams and everything else. So, and they're the McLaren's a beautiful car. The Aston's great. They're really cars that you aspire to have, and they're obviously great to drive.
That's just an epic colour, isn't it?
I don't want to talk about the McLaren too much.
No, quite sure. Rubbish. Let's.
It's a lovely colour.
2012, you're still with Aston Martin Racing, and hopefully doing the GTE, the Pro GTE class, which is very hotly contested, I guess, in an Aston Martin Vantage.
Yeah, that's so the regs are changing, so there's no longer, I think, the GT2, so it's GTE, and they're slightly quicker than what the current GT2s are. So yeah, we'll be in the works car. I think our programme at the moment is the World Endurance Championship, and hopefully if we get an entry for Le Mans as well. So looking forward to getting started. We've done a little bit of testing, and then it's a case of just getting our heads down and trying to make sure that we're competitive. Exciting
times ahead, isn't it, with the reintroduction of the World Endurance Championship. It's been a long time coming. 20 years, in fact.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's great that there is a World Endurance Championship. It was great that the GT1 became a World Championship. And JP's trying to ring me, but as a professional, I've turned my phone on to silent, so it's not going to work.
Go away.
I know that old trick. So, yeah, I mean, the World Endurance Championship, it's a fantastic formula, and it's exciting because there's always different races going on up and down. And you think about the amount of overtaking that happens on one lap. There's always something to be looking at, and the racing's very close out there.
Another very important facet of motorsport that you're involved in is, of course, with Base Performance Simulators, the company you set up, obviously with a view to fulfilling immense demand for racing drivers and racing teams to simulate what goes on at a racetrack before it actually happens. And that's really taken off for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think obviously the F1 boys have been on that sort of ladder now for sort of 10, 12 years. And you can see just by what you glean that information from the TV that, it's an integral part of their development of not so much the drivers at that level, but obviously the engineering element and being able to maximise the cars over the race weekend. And like everything from Formula 1, it all filters down to the lower formulas. And, I've had the experience of seeing the F1 simulators and being involved with them. So I've learned a lot from that time. And now there's another level that there's a lot of demand for, and certainly that's what we set the company up for, is to sort of deal with the fact that it's getting more expensive on track to do it for real. And you go to a normal race weekend, you might get a half an hour practice session, a 20-minute qualifying, and then a half an hour race, and it's all done and dusted. So if you want to make the most of that time, having a day or half a day in a simulator just make sure that when you do get to the track, you're going to hit it running. And I think that's really important for not just the up-and-coming guys. The guys you had on earlier on from the award, I'm sure all of them are using simulators a lot now in preparation for race weekends. And you can see it's a part of their process now of being a better driver. But it's also for the club drivers. Again, they're limited on time, and if they want to be competitive, they're going to be out there trying to get something and an advantage over the competition.
I went on one a few years ago, and obviously with a very limited understanding of how a racing car behaves, but somebody was tweaking stuff on a laptop behind me, and he'd make it understeer and oversteer, and it was bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. It's just amazing what you can do.
Yeah, I think the one you're on was a sort of an engineering level of simulator, so that's very much a part of the program of developing the car. The stuff that we're doing is certainly more for driver development, circuit familiarisation. But yeah, it's the fact that you can be there driving. They can make some changes, and it feels like what you'd expect on the racetrack. So it's very important to make sure that realism and that immersion is as good as you can get.
Okay, mate. I'll let you go. Thanks for talking to us. Have a cracking season, won't you?
I will. Thanks very much.